We're going to have a look at the solution to the general monic quadratic equation x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And the reason why I want to just go through this briefly with you is when later on when we look at the solution to non-monic quadratic equations, we're going to prove the quadratic formula. Okay, that's the x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so but before we do that, let's just consider the basic sort of monic quadratic equation in sort of general terms. We've got b and we've got the coefficients b and c. The coefficient of x squared is 1, that's why it's monic, mono, 1. Okay, so let's complete the square then on this quadratic equation. What we're going to do first, we're going to move the plus c over to the other side. We're going to make it minus c there. So x squared plus bx is equal to negative c. Okay. Now what we're going to do, we need to come up with another term, a third term here, so that we can express the left-hand side in basically as a perfect square. Okay. That's what it means by completion of the square. We're going to sort of make it a nice sort of perfect square that we can just express it as the square of a binomial instead of two different binomials. So x squared plus bx, what we're going to do, we're going to halve the middle term and then square it. So that's going to be b over 2 all squared. Okay. Now, what you add to one side, we have to add to the other side as well. So we're also going to add b over 2 all squared. Okay, so let's clean this up a little bit so it just looks a bit neater. So that's going to be b squared on 4. Okay, is equal to negative c plus b squared over 4. Now, the left-hand side can be expressed now as a perfect square. Okay, so this is the perfect square, x plus b over 2 squared is equal to negative c plus b squared on 4. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to express it as a fraction with a common denominator of 4. So that's going to be negative 4c plus b squared over 4. Okay, hopefully we're happy with that. So up a little bit there. Okay, so I'm just going to clean up the right hand side just a little bit more. Squared is equal to, now I'm going to have it as b squared minus 4c over 4. That looks a little bit better there, okay, rather than having the negative out the front. Now what we'll do, let's take the square root of both sides because we want x to be the subject of the formula here. Okay, so x plus b over 2, okay, is equal to b squared minus 4c on 4. We want the square root of that, and it's in fact plus or minus. Okay, just going to move over to the other side now. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to subtract b on 2 from both sides. Okay, so x is equal to negative b on 2 plus or minus, okay, square root of b squared minus 4c over 4. Now we can tidy this up a little bit more because we have the square root of b squared minus 4c over the square root of 4. Okay, so I'll just squash this up just a little bit just so you can see what I'm going to do next. This is where surds are very, very useful, knowing how to work with surds over square root of 4. So what I've done is I've split this surd up so that we have b squared minus 4c as a surd in its own right over the square root of 4. So we can divide it. Okay, so that's just negative b on 2 plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4c over 2. And this can be expressed now as a common, as a fraction with a common denominator of 2, sorry. So that's going to be x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4c all over 2. Now, that might look somewhat familiar to those that have already seen the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula involves an a, b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Notice that the a, in this case, is a 1. So therefore, the a is not really shown here because it's just multiplication by 1. So this is really the precursor to the quadratic formula.